Breaking tonight, the Justice Department will miss the House Oversight Committee's deadline to turn over the Epstein files the panel subpoenaed. The original deadline was tomorrow, Tuesday. Oversight Chairman James Comer now says the department will begin turning over documents on Friday. And there's one word that caught our attention: begin. There's no word yet on how long it will take to turn over all of the documents requested, or if all the documents will ever be handed over, for that matter, right? But we can rest assured, folks, James Comer will do whatever it takes to put the Trump Justice Department in the best light possible, no matter how much they fall short. Joining us now, Jack Scarola. He's an attorney for several Jeffrey Epstein victims.
It is good to have you with us, sir. So one word that stood out to us was begin. The other word that stood out to us from James Comer is his calling this failure, missing the deadline by the Trump administration, quote, transparency. Is that how you see it?
What I see and what I know many victims of the Epstein-Maxwell abuse have seen for nearly 2 decades now is a continuation of a massive government-sponsored cover-up. This is not accountability. This is not transparency. What the victims have received repeatedly is deception, delay, and diversion. And this is one more example of that unfortunate re-victimization of the over 100 children who suffered abuse at the hands of Epstein and Maxwell.
I want to throw out some important dates over the next couple of months here. August 26th to October 14th, former government officials testifying before the House Oversight Committee. September 2nd, Congress returning from recess. September 3rd, Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna to potential release of Epstein files standing next to Epstein survivors. The 29th of September, SCOTUS will look at closed-door conference with Ghislaine Maxwell. October 1, government shutdown deadline. So they have quite a bit going on. What information, substantive, are you expecting in the next 2 months to come out of all of what we're looking at?
We have learned, unfortunately, not to expect anything of value. Efforts, for example, to release grand jury testimony are an obvious diversion. There is nothing in those transcripts that is not already well known. But the Department of Justice has at hand substantive information that could be released tomorrow without waiting on subpoenas, without waiting on court orders. There is an 80-plus page prosecution memorandum that was drafted in 2007 that is in the hands of the Department of Justice that outlines the results of a detailed investigation that had taken part at that point in time. There's a 50-plus page federal indictment that never got filed as a result of the Epstein sweetheart deal. But those documents exist. They are there. There's a transcript of 2 days of interviews with Ghislaine Maxwell. There's no reason why that transcript is being withheld if the objective of the federal government was really to achieve transparency, to finally play it straight with the Epstein victims. Those transcripts ought to be released. And you mentioned witness lists of individuals that are supposed to appear before government oversight committees. Well, those witness lists, they read like a casting call for Epstein cover-up episode number 50, because the only person that can answer some of the most significant questions with regard to this cover-up, the only person who has those answers is Alex Acosta. And he is missing from that list with no reason whatsoever for him not to be at the top.
Well, I think to that point, sir, it speaks to exactly what's at play here. They don't want this exposed. Trump is doing everything he possibly can, from invading the District of Columbia to having glad-handing moments with Vladimir Putin. But at the end of every moment, there is this image that America knows. This image of Donald Trump and Mr. Epstein having a grand old time, pointing at whomever they're pointing at in that room and talking about whomever they're talking about. And this idea of trying to distance himself from them does not work. Congress will come back after Labor Day. And this narrative, this storyline will pick up again, despite the fact that the speaker thinks for some reason letting them go home early, that this would all go away. But at the core of this, you represent victims. You represent individuals who were harmed, violated by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Is there any thought and an additional consideration to having more of those victims come forward and speak, to move the needle, to force the government's hand, if you will, with their truth, their narrative? Because a lot of what everyone is, thinking is that as long as there's this sort of ability for Trump to sort of maneuver away from that reality, that conversation, the easier this becomes for them. What do you think about that thinking, and what about the possibility, as you represent some of those victims, of those voices being leveled up, as some have, but are more expected?
That thinking misses the mark. The most significant questions that remain unanswered are questions to which the victims themselves don't have answers because they were excluded from the process. Mm-hmm. In spite of federal law that requires that victims be participants in every material stage of a criminal prosecution, Alex Acosta entered into an express agreement with Epstein's lawyers after promising the victims that they would be heard. He entered into an agreement with Epstein's lawyers that the victims would not be informed with regard to the sweetheart deal, that they would be excluded from the sentencing process, and those things were carried out in secret. The state court judge who sentenced Epstein was not informed of the details of the sweetheart deal that led to that sentencing. And he wasn't informed not only with the knowledge of federal prosecutors, but at the direction of federal prosecutors. The victims don't have information that explains why that occurred. And for nearly 2 decades now, they have wanted answers to those questions. And we can't lose sight of the fact that we can't use the past tense when we talk about what happened to these children, because now, as young adults and mature women, they continue to be victimized every day. Every time the name Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell is mentioned, wounds that have been trying to heal for a very long time are reopened, and they have got to live with the renewed pain of what they suffered at the hands of those predators. It's just not fair. And the American public is beginning to realize that. And that's where the hope lies. The hope lies with the fact that now the American public's eyes are being opened to these unanswered questions.